I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Basir. Appreciate you coming back. This is our fourth steering committee meeting, and we think it's our final steering committee for this plan. And if I can get this going to the, go this way. So what we want to do today is really move through the comments that we received on the plan, and thank you to Terry for forwarding those over. So that's the main point of this, and just talk about that and the next steps. So what we did here is we took the comments that we received, organized them a little bit more kind of geographically, make it easier to talk about an area. And these are the comments that we received, and then our proposed resolution. Everyone should have a copy of the presentation in front of you, and also if you can sign in, it's a sign-in sheet. So the first comment we received, so we're talking about Seashore and Broadway, and there's a couple slides here for Seashore and Broadway. First one was about including language that the best solution for getting bicyclists and foot traffic off of Broadway is to build a bicycle ped bridge over the wetlands to connect Grand Avenue to First Avenue in the city of Cape May. So the project team discussed that, and you'll see for this one, as you'll see for some of these other comments as well, you know, we're hesitant to be specific about a scope of a project at this point. This is a plan. It's to identify locations and some potential countermeasures, but not to really scope out the specifics of a project. So the discussion was that there will be our resolution is there will be a follow-up as part of the plan to do a bike ped access study that will look at different access to the beach in the downtown from West Cape May, and including this potential connection of a bridge over the wetlands. And then, you know, we think it would be best to put that as part of that study, not to, you know, identify that as the solution at this point. And I know this was a big discussion at one of our previous steering committee meetings.
Question.
George, sure.
Yeah, of course I'm going to ask the question. I'm just trying to understand. So you want to do another complete study to identify potential routes to the beach from the western part of Cape Island or the island? That's what you're suggesting?
That was in the plan as one of our follow-up actions in here, and that could also be a supplemental planning grant to do a ped bike access study, to kind of relook at the study that was done previously and reassess that, and then that would look at different routes and what are the best routes, the safest routes, most efficient routes to get.
Okay, so I've been coming to these meetings for 4 months, 6 months. I thought that's what we were doing, actually.
No, this was to look at locations, where are the crashes happening on the local roads, and look at what we can do for on-road safety.
Okay, so the only death we've had in the last, as my recollection, was on Broadway. That would statistically make Broadway the most dangerous road because there was a death there. Getting people off that will be a primary thing of this study for me. I don't understand why I don't understand what we're doing then. I'm very confused about the outcome of this project if it doesn't include ways to mitigate or improve the safety. To me, that's what this project's about.
George, if I may?
Sure.
What I read in the draft report was that the recommendation to do an update of the 2015 or 16 bike and pedestrian plan audit for the island, because what was done before was only Cape May and Cape May Point, because at that time, West Cape May, I think, maybe didn't choose to participate. I'm not sure what happened there. So to update it to include West Cape May and include parts of Lower Township, so it is a updated bicycle route plan. That was my understanding. It's in this draft plan. And, which is, that's an option. That
Okay,
doesn't
so
mean it's
I'm gonna
chosen.
I'm going to propose this. We don't need a $100,000 study to figure out the best way to get people off Broadway. I can tell you right now, and again, I'm very adamant about this because there are very limited places where you actually can get off of Broadway. The route should always go down Pacific, across Sunset, and go this way. And I don't understand a study that's just spending money. This is pretty clear what the way to get people down. If you just stand there, you can watch where all the people are coming from. People go to the path of least resistance. That's the way they go. They don't go down Broadway. So I misunderstood I just misunderstood the last 6 months. I apologize.
Yeah, I understand you feel strongly about that solution. I know the city also wants to look at what are the best options, and this may be the best option, but also if you're going for federal money, you need to look at all alternatives when you're looking at bike routes or looking for things. If you're going to use federal money and go through NEPA, you have to look at different options. So go through that process.
So you're saying that another study's going to have to happen for that?
That was in the plan, was to do an update to the 2016 study, and we said this would be part of it, is to look at all these route locations and look at what are the best locations to have an analysis done, to say, this may be a great route, maybe from one source to get there, but for other folks coming from a different area, there may be other routes that are needed as well. So,
And believe me, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that this is the only path to the beach. What I'm saying is that if you live on the west side of Broadway, all the way out to where it hits Lower Township, out past on Stevens Avenue, you can either go to the point to the beach, or you can, if you want to go to a Cape May beach, this is the only way you can get there.
Safely?
Safely, because once you go down, say you're coming down Second Avenue from far off, down by, let's just say west, you're coming down, you cannot ride your bike down Perry Street in front of Wilbraham Park. That is not doable. There's no room, it's dangerous, it comes up as red on your map. Okay, so where do you have to go? You have to make a right turn onto Broadway. This eliminates that issue. So tell me the alternative for people that live on West. There is no other alternative. You can't go across the wetlands in South Cape May Meadows. And you're not allowed to be on the beach except to bird and walk around. So there is no other option for those people unless you keep going. And I don't know how you get there because you can't go down Perry. So I'm just frustrated by the whole, we got to do another $100,000 survey or study to come up with solutions from that area. I'm not saying there shouldn't be other ones, and I've talked about those too. If you live at the campground in West Cape May, or you live on the other side of Broadway, the solution's easy because you can just go to Park Avenue. It's a bike lane already. We're putting a roundabout in. You go around the roundabout, down Grant, right at the life-saving station. There, I'll give you another route. So it's not that I'm not saying that other routes can't be considered. A route for people from the west side of West Cape May, this is the only route unless you go down Broadway. So I don't need a study to tell you that.
And a quick question on, and the thing that was, everything that was outside of the scope of the bike walk plan, this is talking about But this did not include studies, correct?
I'm not following your question.
This, so what you're suggesting here is that a further study would have to be for what we've proposed as a solution. But, so I thought that the $200,000 grant was for the planning and recommendations, and then if we get the $600,000 from the federal, that's enacting the plan that we're working on now. So evidently, that's not the case?
I don't know what the 600,000 you're referring to.
Well, it's part of the federal plan that we go back, once we have these recommendations, a study from what you recommend, this plan put together, then it's implementing. My understanding is then another grant would be, the city would submit another grant, and that would be the implementation. Am I?
Correct.
Did everybody understand that to be?
Yep.
So the way the process works is the priorities that are in the plan would all be eligible for applications for implementation. It wouldn't be for money to do all of that. You'd have to prioritize what
I understand that.
what would be, where you're applying for. And if it's a project for an improvement, if it's a study, those are all things that can be applied for. Yeah, and they could be separate applications. So I'm not know if that's answering your question. It may not be.
Well, let's continue, I guess, and we'll see what we can
Okay.
dispute on that, too.
Okay. Next comment was, there are three more comments. One was talking about eliminating the proposed sidewalks on Seashore Road due to their cost, and that there are few walkers. Most are bicyclists, and sharrows and wide shoulders are satisfactory. The next comment was eliminate all parking on Broadway and make continuous wide shoulder and sharrows as far as possible. And the third comment was consider speed humps or tables on Broadway. So our proposed resolution is that, look, the plan intent is to address safety for all road users. We would recommend not, precluding sidewalks under consideration, because when you apply later on, you will be scoping out those projects. And if you rule out sidewalks, then you're kind of limiting your opportunity in the future to include them if you wanted to in the future. So our recommendation is that you don't take those out at this point. But it would study, improvements on Seashore and Broadway to scope that out, to figure out what are the best options and come up with that specifically, what we want to do there. As part of, if you did an implementation grant, it would be just, to fully scope that out and design improvements on Seashore Road and Broadway, which may or may not include sidewalks.
My thought on this is, at our last meeting, we were very together in not doing sidewalks all the way out into Lower Township. I don't know why you're not accepting that recommendation. I mean, it just seems that, to us at BPAC, that is a waste of time and money.
Well, I wasn't at your last meeting because. Oh, I wasn't at your last meeting because we're only invited to every other meeting of this, right? The steering committee. I'm here as a steering committee member. But when I was last here, I did note that I have seen people with strollers and walking along that road and running along that road. So you can't assume you don't need sidewalks, especially eventually more of that's likely to get developed. There's lots of land along there still that could be developed. They're developing behind the church now. So it just comes way down in the priority list later when they go for implementation grants, and it'll be up to Lower Township whether they want to pursue that because it's their jurisdiction. There's no reason to say we're against a sidewalk at this point.
It's not so much being against them, it's just that the dollar figure, and I can't remember what it was.
$1.5 million.
But we aren't the ones deciding that.
Correct.
We're making a recommendation from our committee.
Okay, well, as a member of the steering committee, I would say leave in the sidewalks everywhere. A gap has been noted for possible future implementation. That's all.
Yeah, it does-
Doesn't mean it's going to happen,
right.
but it might need to happen someday.
That's reasonable, yes,
But just note that.
yeah.
Well, I think things are prioritized somewhere in here, aren't they?
Well, we don't prioritize each of the recommendations, but,
No,
you know.
in general,
in
there's
general, yes,
priorities.
Yes.
Right.
The other concern about doing that is if you can't do it everywhere, that's where it becomes disjointed as far as routing. And that's the problem that we've seen in downtown Cape May, is the routing between the one-way streets and safety factor. To me, the best, safest is continuous routing, that you don't come to a point and it's like, oh, it stops, now where do you go? And so to me, it would be very difficult from seashore all the way to the beach to continue this without a lot of trouble from the neighbors and also the cost. So I'll just say that.
I mean, to me, and I have no problem putting it on the list way down on the priority, but I don't remember ever seeing any data that supported this. Where's the data that said, this kind of just popped up, oh, we're going to put sidewalks on Seashore
No.
Road?
It wasn't that we're going to, it was they identified it as a gap where there are no sidewalks, that's all.
So what's the data that says that we need sidewalks?
No, it would need further study, and it would have to be a priority for Lower Township.
That's fine.
Spending money.
Forget it, I'm done.
And just one note, most runners do not go on sidewalks.
Right, and in fact, as we're talking about, I'm thinking about the bike path that's been running through the county continuously, and that's a shared path off-road for bikes and walkers and runners in an asphalt rather than concrete, and maybe that's the solution for parts of Seashore. I
Yeah,
don't know.
The rail line with the electric.
Or not even the rail line, possibly the rail line someday, but even right
That's all.
off the road, like they're going to do on Sunset Boulevard, at least parts of it is going to be off the road when they put in the bike path on Sunset Boulevard. So some of it is going to be right next to the road and continuous with some kind of designation that this is bike, but some of it's going to be off-road with some, like you see along Route 9.
I think it would just be noted, if you could, that for the bike committee, bike pedestrian committee, we would like that low priority.
Okay.
And end of story.
Sure, and it's Cape May's committee, so that's fine.
And you are invited to every meeting. It's on the calendar every second Tuesday.
I wasn't
so-
aware. I was told
always
to come. I was part of the steering committee, and so and when I ask when's the next meeting, I'm told when it is, which is in 2 months. So that's why I come when I come.
Bike committee
I don't know why
meets-
you're coming every time.
I'm on the committee.
Well, how are you on the committee when you're in West Cape May?
Well, Catherine, it works like this. I was invited to become a member of the committee, and I'm sure they would have invited you also. So if you would like to be, you'll have to check with the committee.
Okay. No one explained any of that to me, so
Yeah.
I didn't know, George.
Yeah.
there
You
you-
submit
now
to the city.
Okay.
Okay.
Next one, Stevens Street. The committee comment, understanding was to stripe Stevens Street with shoulders rather than constructing sidewalks. Again, our resolution, or proposed response to that is that will be scoped when you start to look at what that's a safety location, and, scope it out and decide what's best for that location.
Right.
And
Dave,
note higher priority. We would like to see that, because that's less costly if you don't put sidewalks in. I know that it's important to one of our committee members who lives on that street, but I think it's definitely, we would all verify that it is a higher priority. Correct?
My thoughts, if you're going to do Stevens Street, you might as well do Seagrove, because they tie right into each other, and that's the bike path going into the point. to keep off of Sunset Boulevard. So if you're going to do one, you should do
That-
the other.
That was the discussion. One of the places you identified was Seagrove in Lower Township, and we basically said Stevens is an extension of
Right.
Seagrove. So
It's all the safe route
It's all the
issue.
it's all the same road, basically, except you cross over.
Right.
So that was kind of added to it, so.
Okay, okay.
And higher priority.
So, Terry, when you're saying higher priority, can you clarify when you mean higher, what's,
Well, it's very low priority for sidewalks on Seashore. This is a less expensive fix for something that I believe the whole Cape Island feels is important.
Okay, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but my understanding was that we're identifying locations that need more work for implementation grants, which will involve more engineering studies for those grants. And that we're just identifying locations and routes that need more attention, not what the solution is for that route and what specific, is it a sidewalk, is it a stripe, is it that? That's not what this committee is for.
correct?
That was my understanding.
Correct. In the plan, we have some suggested potential countermeasures that could be, but that isn't the scope of what the project is to be. These are some things to be considered, but it's not the solution.
It's more,
Right.
here are the areas that need
Yes.
something done,
Right,
and here are some possible options, but
Right.
this isn't where we
Correct.
decide, because we don't have the details of the benefits of each or the
Right.
costs of each.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
And I only speak up about that because I've been working with my own projects in Cape May Point on a lot of engineering studies and projects, so I have some sense of the flow of process, how that happens, and that you have to have some steps along the way before you get there.
So let me understand again, because I'm a little slow, obviously. When you presented the last time, you had a list of projects, specific projects, which is exactly the opposite of what Catherine just said. You had projects listed. One was the sidewalk, and it had a cost associated, an estimated cost associated with it. My understanding was those were 6 projects, there were 6 of them. Those 6 projects were, and these were estimates of what it would cost. You sent us back and said, hey, can you guys take a look at these? What do you think? We said, okay, we're going to look at them. We looked at the project, for example, for Seashore, $1.5 million. That's a cost. What's the benefit compared to the other projects that we had? So there were 6. So what was that data?
Yeah, it was a preliminary estimate based on some potential countermeasures to say, this gives you an order of magnitude of what a project would be out here from this. So the project is from this point to this point, it's the limits.
Right.
We would do some improvements. Based on these potential countermeasures, we think it would cost about this much money. So it's not to say this is a scoped-out project specifically, but it gives an order of magnitude, so when you're looking to prioritize down the road or looking for funding, et cetera, that kind of thing.
All right, so here's where I
Yeah.
think the gap,
Yeah.
what we're talking about to what you're saying.
Yeah,
When we got that list, you said, look at that list and tell us what you think.
Mm-hmm.
And we dutifully, we said, okay, yeah, we're going to take a look at the list.
What list?
Well, if you were at the meeting, you would have saw it. You would have
Last
seen-
month's meeting?
No, it was the one, they presented it to us.
I don't remember seeing
Okay,
figures.
so let me finish. So
Yeah,
there was a list of
back here.
6
Yeah.
projects. You sent us away and asked for comments. Did I miss something here? You sent us away, and we said, yeah, okay, we see these 6 projects. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks for identifying them. We say, and then we came back with what we sent you, which was, okay, and we keep going back to Seashore, and I'm fine, leave it on the list, but we feel that it's a lower priority than the other projects that you have.
I agree.
But you asked us to do that, and that's what we did.
Okay.
So that was the note that was sent back. Am I right, guys?
Right.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So if the-
So I'm not
so if
losing
the-
my mind.
So if the committee feels that, Seashore and Broadway is a lower priority, I guess it's Lower Township and West Cape May ultimately, it's in your jurisdiction, and I guess, we want to make sure.
Just
so-
to be clear, the committee came back and made a comment regarding putting sidewalks from the bridge across the canal to West Cape May. That was the scope of that. We actually said, when we responded, we said, we feel that there's a huge issue from Stimson down to the firehouse because of the turn at, well, the campground and then Ducky's and then the turn on to Central. Because that is a mess. So that intersection really, we felt, should be focused on a
High
little bit more.
priority.
Yeah.
Rather than there because of the danger involved.
Right.
Whereas we felt that, and I am one of the runners that runs down Seashore, and I run on the shoulder, and I don't have any issues, but that's just me. I don't see a lot of people walking on there, and there's not a lot of people that live up there. People get in their cars when they go there, or they get on their bicycles. There's a bike path. It's the extension of the bike path. So anyway, so that's what we were trying to do based on the 6 projects you listed. So that, maybe that's where I
Okay.
got confused
Okay.
with the whole thing.
Yeah.
Correct. That's what we understood. And so there's a disconnect, there's a little bit of confusion here, because I think you gave us 3 projects that you thought were priorities, and then we looked at them and discussed them, and this is.
And we added a few more at the last meeting, right?
Right.
So we added 3 more that were of concern to you, and we
Yeah.
included them. So there were 6 total projects, I think, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
That
then
wasn't
there's,
losing my mind.
and
Yeah.
the priority of the different projects is what comes out of this, right?
Well, they're all 6 going to be in there, and then how they get prioritized later, I think it's up to each town, and what they're going to implement, what they want to apply for in
Okay.
terms of grants.
Right.
So
Okay.
that kind of work. So I hope that clarifies things. So, the discussion on the side, I mean, with the steering committee, is there a consensus about this, going back to this sidewalk on Seashore? I want to make sure I understand what's the consensus of the steering committee? Is the steering committee saying we're no sidewalks and absolutely? Or are we
okay,
saying we're
let
going to
me-
look at this?
Let me clarify since I've caused this somewhat. I don't really personally care that much whether there's sidewalks all the way to the bridge or not. My understanding was that if you don't include every possibility in what comes out of this phase of the Safe Island project, you can't add it later when you go for grants. So if it's not identified as a possible problem, you can never apply for grants in the future for it that come out of this Safe Streets program.
Yeah, and in the reality, when you apply for an implementation grant, you'll say, we're going to look at safety improvements from here to here.
And you can
And you
do
talk
it
about all these different things and all these different possibilities. And then as you go into the process, you say, well, sidewalks we don't want to do sidewalks, and you pull them out.
What I think we're coming to a conclusion on is some of these are a higher priority than others.
Absolutely.
And
Okay.
that's where we are.
Okay,
And that's what we want noted.
And I do agree that the West Cape May portion up to along Seashore is the higher priority to anything between there and the rural area towards the bridge. I do agree with that. So if it can be
Okay.
left out, then
Okay.
that's fine. I don't care
Okay.
that much.
all right.
Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
about this So, prioritization, one of the things that I get worried about is that you take the shotgun approach and you put 12 projects or 8 or 9 or whatever on there, and then you don't focus in on the ones that you really need to get done, because then they're all on there, and everybody says, well, I want this one, whereas if you could make the project list shorter, and I hear you, I don't think that just because it's not on the thing, you
Okay,
can't try
then
to
that's
get a
fine.
grant for it, that's not, if Lower wants to go get a grant, they can probably go get a grant for a sidewalk, just like we could redo Stevens Avenue anytime we want. You know, that's not, just because it's not in this project, I'm just trying to,
You won't be able to get a SS4A grant.
right, well, I get that.
That was my,
Okay,
Yeah,
so thanks for that clarification.
yeah.
Okay.
You're kind of ruling out the ability to get an SS4A grant if you don't
that
have it in the
that was,
plan.
that
Yeah.
was where I thought I understood it from. And,
Yeah.
you know, we do have somebody here from government in Cape May. What comes out of this, and it was your grant, you're going to, from Cape May, focus on your highest priorities in Cape May, correct?
Yes.
And the ones that are in our own jurisdictions more so, it's going to be up to us to take the lead on those. The KMA's not going to do it for us. But because we've got this planning that includes the whole island, we'll have that to draw upon and not have to start over from square one, doing our own study of safe streets in our own towns.
Correct.
So this is getting us ahead of ahead of the
I believe
curve.
that this project was for the, although Cape May got the grant, thank you, this was for the whole island.
It is for the whole island,
Yeah.
for planning, but not for implementation.
Yes, every
This-
town.
this
can
is a
apply for
planning-
implementation
this is a
grant if
planning
they
grant.
point to this action plan, right?
Right.
But that's no different than what Cape May
No.
has to do too.
So, right.
Right. But because we've been included in all this, and it's the whole island, we'll be able to take the same thing and go for something that affects us. And since so much of what we've talked about is the connections between communities that are going to take cooperation between the communities to get money to do something, it's good that we're doing it this way.
Yeah, there's no question that the original bike walk was very limited. We were,
Yes.
very disappointed, even as a Cape May resident, that it didn't tie to West Cape May, didn't tie to my side of the neighborhood on Lafayette Street. And so we've always been looking at the big picture for everybody. But I just want to clarify that we're an advisory committee. So all the studies in the world and the professional recommendations, we all live here. And we would appreciate that these high priority lists are stated, because we ride bikes, we know this area.
Right.
No disrespect, but that's where I think we're a little confused that, and I know we talk about the specifics, but because we're talking about the high priority areas.
Right, okay.
All right, we'll keep moving. Next one is Lafayette Bank in Decatur. So there were some comments here about the scope. Number one is about specific things to do there, the same issue that we've talked about. Noting that some work had already been done under number two there. Then there was a note about improve empty lot at the corner, eliminating parking meters and allowing handicap parking and bike racks. So this is the same issue about scoping out the project. So, so those are noted, and when, it's go for an implementation grant. This will all be fleshed out on what will be done there. So, so that's really the idea. The bike rack thing, there's a note in there we have in there about that's an off-road improvement, but even so, when you scope out the project, you may look at some other options there to improve transportation and improve bike flow or something. So I don't know necessarily that rules it out for implementation.
And again, not top priority, but a higher priority for that area because it's very high traffic.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and then I think, Terry, there was a note in here about, and if I interpreted it right, I kind of paraphrased, I think, the comment was about providing cell phone access to the bike map. I think that's what your comment, I have your specific comment, I had to pull it up, but I think that was what you were getting at in one of your comments there, Terry. And I don't,
QR code, just getting help with getting that done so that there's a QR code, or it goes on the website. There is one on the website, on the city website, but just to have that accessible. We are going to be working on a paper map again, but the way things go now, it's all
yeah.
it's all off your phone. So that's what that was about.
And we can add that in there as part of our strategies to the plan and note that in there. Also, the other comments about island wayfinding signage.
I like that one.
So we can also put that in there, as that could also be included as part of that bicycle pedestrian study.
Right.
What's the best wayfinding signage for bikes and others? So maybe that would be part of that scope.
One of the other things that we did talk about, and I don't think we were asking to actually have a mobile app our own. I think the way people navigate is they'll go to Google Maps or they'll go to,
Sure.
and they just hit the
I've done
bicycle
it.
icon,
I've
right?
done it, yeah.
How do we get Google to actually put the map that we want? So let's use my favorite topic again. We want people to go down Pacific, not Broadway. And they're at the campground, they hit the button and it says, okay, go up to Landis, make a left, go down. Do you guys have any idea how to do that?
I don't, I
But
would.
that's, I think, what we're
Right,
really
and
asking.
that's what
Because
I-
that's what real people do. Like, when you look to go somewhere, we plug in the address, and all you do is hit the bike thing, where I.
And it gives you the best solution.
Correct.
It gives you the
doesn't now.
solution that's the quickest, not necessarily the
Well-
safest.
You know, you could, with the QR code, go to an interactive map that does that for you, too.
Right.
You can make your own map on Google Maps and have a link to that shows how you want it. But I don't know how well that would work to get people to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, that's another thing to really be studied. My recommendations were a little bit disjointed, but that's basically, the bottom line was to get, the people on their phones can get that safe routing, whether it's Google or whatever.
Okay. Okay.
But the safe routing part was important, your note, the safe routing.
Oh, no, definitely.
The next comment was, there was a comment about removing Washington Street from the plan.
Well, again, I'm sorry to interrupt, but, so we were a little confused about how you presented to us the three areas that you thought were priorities. And so we wanted to intelligently analyze it at our last meeting in September and say, hey, look, we don't think spending a bunch of money on Washington when we think there's other hot spots on Cape Island that deserve more attention. That's how that occurred. Now that we understand via Catherine's comments, via your comments, that all these areas have to be included in this study so that if in the future Cape May City wants to do something with Washington Street, it's in there.
It's in there,
Exactly.
right.
Okay, we understand that now, so you don't have to
Okay.
come back.
Right.
Yeah, that's all I was trying to.
Right,
get
yeah, and you
across,
did a good
because I
job.
understood it because
Right.
I used to help do grants.
Yeah.
And things, so I understand there's all these requirements you have to meet before you can even apply.
Well, no, and so this has been educational, so thank you very much.
Sure, yeah, and I apologize that we did not make it as clear as we could have
That's
previously,
because that's
so.
something you take for granted.
Yeah, yeah.
And forget that
Yes, yes.
regular people like us don't necessarily know that.
Exactly.
We thought we were on the home stretch, and we're still in the first inning, basically.
So you can eliminate that.
Okay, very good.
Or actually added, eliminate our comment.
Right.
Eliminate the
comment.
Oh, we're back to Seashore Broadway.
That
Oh,
was
wait, no,
a
that's-
really important
that's
one,
in there
'cause it's in
again.
here
Okay.
twice.
We have it in there twice, exactly, okay. All right. I wasn't sure that, I didn't see that. You did point it out to me. Okay, all right. So, next steps here. We're planning to have a public meeting
Could
on
I just go
October
back
7th.
to the Washington
Sure,
Street thing
sure.
for a minute? Are you familiar with the front page article in the local newspaper, the Cape May Star and Wave, last week about?
Jeff
about
just
speeding?
mentioned it to me and shot me the article, and I didn't finish reading it. I got to finish reading it, but that's okay, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's very informative, but they have presented a petition to city council last week, the residents there, about the danger of speeding on Washington Street, and particularly at the intersection of Madison and Washington Street. So personally, and I think a group of us would like to see that resolved, with a study, of course, but also add in Lafayette Street. Lafayette Street has the exact same problem. There's fewer residents on Lafayette Street, so they're not as well organized
Right.
as the Washington Street group is and has been historically. They have been very vocal about not making Washington or Lafayette streets one-way streets. For the last 20 years, they've been vocal about that, and they're being vocal here and getting publicity, so.
Right.
I think we're just saying,
Lafayette, I think we had Lafayette in there.
include Washington and Lafayette
Yeah.
Street as
Yeah.
far as speeding goes and potential solutions to that, which includes speed bumps, stop signs, as possibilities.
All kinds of things.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a public meeting scheduled for the 17th next week here. And then city council presentations. I know there was a discussion about each of the municipalities. I think we're interested in having a presentation, and it would be nice to have a resolution from every municipality to be part of this plan. So there's dates up there that Dale pulled together for your next council meetings. I think we're looking at either the 6th or the 18th for the city of Cape May. But if, Catherine's here from Cape May, Point George is here from West Cape May. We don't have anybody from Lower Township. Mike's not here. But if you could give us potential dates that you think would work,
Yeah.
then we can kind of line that up. And if you would like, we can, we drafted a resolution. We would like to have, so one of the things that we would like, we need to have as part of this plan, we need to have elected officials adopt that goal of reaching zero fatalities or significant reduction. We agreed to that as a recommendation as a committee earlier in the process. But the resolution would say, the goal, the city council supports a goal of whatever reduction, and then also, supports the plan. So that would be part of the plan as well. So when you apply for implementation grant, you can show that you have municipal support behind it. So if folks can get back to Dale or myself on those potential dates, we can try to line that up and let me know if you'd like us to, I can share a resolution that we drafted for the city, or if you have something you would like, want us format or something you share, we'll
If you could
draft
just
something
send
for
me
you.
the resolution, that'd be
Okay.
awesome. All right.
Yeah, you could,
That's always helpful.
yeah, you could do the same with us,
Okay.
and then we'll adapt it if it needs to be.
Okay.
The city of Cape May will have ours on November 6th.
Yeah, so that's soon enough, and, yeah.
And I think that's it for us. Dale?
Well, yeah, I mean, the implementation grants, I mean, once this program's done, you're able to go after implementation grants.
Sure.
Remember, this is federally funded, so they're, I'm sorry. Sorry, these are federal funds, so there is a lot of effort that goes into once you get the grant. So right now, I believe there's only been 2 given to the state of New Jersey. One being Vineland and the other one being Hamilton.
Yeah.
So, and Vineland was a $20 million grant, which they have to match with 25%. So they have to come up with $5 million. Hamilton is, I think theirs was 17 or 18 million, but they have to match it with 35%. But basically, it's a 75-25% match on the grant. So, but there is a lot of work in it. So if you were to go after a grant that's only worth about $100,000, the professional services to get that grant would probably be $300,000-$400,000. So you have to look at these projects and try to combine things together
Right.
to make it so that it's worthwhile going forward with it using the federal funds.
Is there a way to do the update of the bike walk plan for the island and include some potential implementation projects in the same grant, or do you have to do it as 2 separate ones?
I would look at the bike ped plan as a supplemental planning grant.
And that's a different
which
than
is,
implement,
then
yes.
the other ones would be implementation.
Yeah,
And
usually they're separated into two. One's a planning grant, and then one would be more of, implementation, because like we just talked about, the fees associated with an implementation grant could exceed what the planning grant could even, remotely be for.
So, I mean, just thinking from the point of view of the bike walk that I am concerned about as well. For us to move ahead, any of us, on some of these bike walk changes that aren't centric to Lafayette and Washington and the high-volume areas, we're going to need that planning effort updated probably first. And then maybe we could do some implementation grants where we combine the routes between towns into one big project, and that would
And
help.
those get more, when they show that there's multiple towns cooperating together, that gets higher points, I think, in the scoring too. So if there's opportunities to do that.
So what do you think of that, George?
I mean, obviously, I thought one of the goals of this whole project was to get the towns to talk together and have a comprehensive plan. I mean, we all go to Cape May, and so everything's centered on that and the way to get there, the way to get to the point to see the tourist attractions there. All those things have to be linked together somehow. And if it's only a partial link, it's not going to really work out. Which is why I was pretty vehement about getting the West Cape, or the people that live on the other side, to the beach safely, which
Right.
is not the case now. So yes, I agree.
Okay,
There are other funding sources too, instead
Okay.
of Safe Streets for All. And, the Broadway, if you were just to take Broadway from, say, the Stimson Lane south,
yeah,
all right, and go to, say, SJTPO and request a concept development, that would look at all options, okay? And that would get you started into the process. And there you'd look at your alternate routes for bikes, also what can be done for addressing Broadway and things like that. So there are other avenues that you could pursue. But a concept development, what comes out, it's a study, but it looks at all options, all right, and comes up with a preliminary preferred alternative, okay? And then that's what you can take to go forward with going through the design to get the construction going. So, and I mean, it's comprehensive because it goes into what's involved permitting-wise. You get some conceptual plans put together.
right.
So it is a good option to move forward with.
Okay.
Because it will not just look at, okay, this is the only way you can get a bike, the bikes around here. I mean, you've got to look at everything, all users, so, and it's something to be considered.
And that's something that's not dependent on implementing this plan. It could be a separate effort, starting in West Cape May, because it's primarily their section of the road they're most concerned about.
Because basically, the implementation plans are, you're moving forward with construction. So you've got your concept already built in, it's already been vetted, and that's not the case here with what's south of Broadway. We don't know what all the impacts are with going through, building a bridge across the waterway there and stuff like that. So there's a lot to be considered before moving forward with that.
So, I mean, if you add up all the projects that you've listed, it's maybe $5 million on the ones that you had. How does it make sense to go after these federal grants when the cost to do the application and the preliminary work is $500,000 to $1 million? I mean, should all the projects be looking at other alternative places to get grants rather than
Now, I mean,
we're not getting 18 million, I'll tell you that.
well, yeah, I mean, you have to look at these, like Washington Street, okay? You got a project right alone just upgrading your traffic signals, on Washington Street. That's over $1 million just to upgrade
Right.
the 3 traffic signals there, okay? You know, because right now, you're $250,000 to $300,000 per traffic signal. That's not even addressing anything else. You know, you'd probably want to look at other things. I know you want to study possibly adding in traffic calming and stuff like that. So it can easily add up, and it's, you know, so that could be, you know, that's one project that's worth standing alone.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? Our chairman left.
He resigned.
So at least from the K-May Point's point of view, I think, I mean, we'll definitely support anything that makes it safer on the island, especially in K-May City, because as you said, we all go there. But for us to get involved in any kind of implementation projects, we'll probably have to wait for the updated bike walk plan, so, because it's complicated for us, because where we want this to happen, Lighthouse is a county road, right? Lighthouse County Road, Seagrove is Lower Township. Does Stevens belong to West Cape May?
Yes.
So that's 3 jurisdictions, so that's gonna have to wait for the bike walk plan, I think, if that's the main focus of that, is about bike walk and not, cars, per se, so. I mean, and we'll jump in on that when the time comes, and we'll happy to support whatever else comes out of all your efforts here in Cape May and West Cape May. But that's kind of how I'm
I
seeing
mean,
it.
the other thing is there were systemic
Yes,
treatments, right?
I am interested
So
in
that, that could also be an implementation grant to implement systemic treatments, you know, and that's all over the island.
Yeah, no, that would be
And there's
good.
something that you could do cooperatively. you
And
know.
now that I've learned, I didn't realize that we could have somebody be on your committee from our town. Maybe we once did, I don't know.
I think it's up to council.
Yes, okay. Anyway, I mean, we have some avid bikers in our town. There might be one who'd be interested at some point when you get into that, especially with the bike walk plan, but I'm here mostly because Dale asked if I could represent the borough, so we'd have somebody from our borough.
No, that would be fine, and we would welcome that, as long as, again, we are an advisory committee at the behest of city council.
Exactly, yeah, and we don't need to, or we could send
Yeah.
someone to your meetings when it's relevant to us, I don't know,
Yeah.
okay.
We'll draft a summary of our understanding of today's meeting and send it back to and make sure we're okay. Get that back out to everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, I mean, this is very interesting to me. I think it's gonna be great if some of this happens in our lifetime.
I'm starting to think it won't, but
It will.
I am getting up there in years, you know.
How long have you been the commissioner?
2 years.
Okay, so now I'm in my 4th year, and I have now come to realize it takes at least a year to plan something. It takes at least a year to construct it, and it could be longer. And it's like, oh my God, everything takes forever.
That's if there's no federal.
I'm hoping my grandchildren will see this bridge. That's the plan.
Well, Dale will know, he's working on, waiting on the state, last I heard, to finalize a project that's starting this fall sometime to replace water mains and repave and reconstruct roads in Cape May Point. We're just waiting for the state at this point. I mean, this has been going on since, what, last year that we started talking about this?
Yeah.
And last July is when you applied for the DOT funds, and we got the county funds for the ARPA that's going towards it. Is it ARPA?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of it, but,
We're up to 13 years for the roundabout in West Cape May.
well, that, I have no idea why that is, but it could be,
Federally funded, that's why.
That's
yeah.
And also, there wasn't a lot of push. A lot
Somebody
of
has
push.
to- There
were
We
some
needed-
issues with
we needed
neighbors and
push,
things like that,
And
yeah.
then there's right-of-way
Maybe
issues.
easements and so
Yeah.
on, yeah.
Well, we're happy to see that one go.
Same thing with Sunset Boulevard, that has stretched out over time, partly because of easements and
And the DEP
right-of-ways and
project.
plan, and they're not done planning it.
No.
so,
They don't have the funding yet, so.
and they don't have the funding. So this is going to be a long time.
It's called Hurry Up and Wait.
Well, I'm starting to understand a little more about why it's like that and just kind of accept it, but yeah, it does require officials to say, so what's happening? So what's happening? That does help.
Does?
It does. It does.
This has been, I think, constructive and instructive today. And so for me personally, I understand the process a lot more. And that's just part of the dynamics of discussing this as a group and letting people talk. And everybody's had great inputs. And I, for one, appreciate it. Especially you guys have done a nice job with it, and now it's finally starting to sink in, at least for my thick head. And I suppose you're finished with your presentation at this point?
We are, yes.
You are, okay.
They're done.
Super. So thank you very much, and we can, I don't know that we have anything else to discuss as a committee specifically.
Yeah, here. Our assistant manager's here, so. If I can address, can you give us a report just on an update of what's going on around town as far as any additional improvements or anything like that? Usually we get a report of what's the latest. For instance, on Elmira around the substation.
Sure. So on Elmira, as you can see, the sidewalk has been completed partially with Atlantic City Electric, and the city also took on a little bit of the project as well to make sure that the sidewalk connects. So while the perfect, yeah, and Mr. Dietrich apologizes, he's not available right now, but the sidewalk obviously now connects. So like I said, Atlantic City Electric was able to, we utilized the same vendor, and they were able to complete it fairly quickly out there.
How about paving?
So that will be, I don't want to speak out of turn, so I don't have an exact date on when that would be done out there. I know they're actively working on some utility lines as we speak.
And so will that paving go from Broad to the bridge?
It stops at the bridge.
It stops at the bridge, right?
That's how I understand, yes.
Okay. And then does it go to the end, up to Broad, or does it go just to Venice? Are you aware?
I'd have to look at the specific plans on it.
Okay. Could you let us know on that?
Sure, absolutely.
I don't know, is there any other areas of, that we need to know about?
Good.
Line is,
We're all good. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
is probably joint.
A second? No one's going to jump forward?
Before you actually conclude, I just want to address something because it was brought to my attention about the Washington Street and maybe some comments that were made at the council meeting. Obviously, the city's position is, we'll look at any calming measures, as we feel are appropriate. Obviously, I think the number one priority, and you can see it already, is more enforcement, more police presence out there on Washington Street. Chief is aware, there's more officers out there. We're going to make sure that there's, the speed radars are appropriately spaced and make sure that we're collecting that data and that they're working properly. I think there might have been some confusion in terms of people saying, hey, we're, anti-speed bumps. To answer the question, if we're putting in one speed bump, that's not going to work. So we'd have to look at, unfortunately, a speed study to ensure that whatever calming measures we're going to be putting out there are not just short-sighted, but would be for the long term. So I just wanted to make sure that the committee understood kind of what the comments were, because if you take a snippet of what I said, it could be misconstrued as, we're anti-something. We're open to anything, but if you're going to put in one speed bump, that's not going to be effective.
Right.
You know, so you would have to look at various measures out there to ensure that it's, again, long-term, not short-term.
So were your comments cherry-picked out of that discussion, or?
Maybe?
Okay. No, and it's totally understandable, and Paul emailed me to say, hey, look, we're going to do this within the context of Safe Streets
Exactly.
comprehensive plan.
Exactly. And you know, we're very fortunate. Mr. Dietrich is, along with being city manager, also the city engineer. So his expertise is very important on this, and I'm sure that, hey, like we said, we're open to looking at whatever the measures are, but we have to make sure that we're not short-sighted and we look at a full elongated project.
Correct. We do understand that now.
Perfect.
But I just wanted, I commented to everyone via email to say, hey, look, this could be taken out of context, and people get the wrong impression about what you guys were saying and what is ultimately planned. And so I have a favorite saying in life. It's by George Bernard Shaw. The greatest problem with communication is the illusion that it has been accomplished. I'll end with that.
Sounds good.
Okay,
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
thank you.